Well, hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to Library Class with Mr. S. Well, guys, we did it. We are at the last chapter of The Mouse and the Motorcycle, written by Beverly Cleary. I hope you guys have been enjoying this story. It's kind of cool, it's kind of fun, and it's about a mouse. So, here we are, Chapter 13, the final chapter. It's called A Subject for a Composition. A subject for a composition? Oh, that sounds fancy. Okay, Ralph was a hero in the mouse hole that night. His admiring relatives gathered around, begging to hear the story of his adventures. Ralph could not help bragging a little as he told the story of his travels, beginning with the search of the second-floor rooms, skipping the part about the teachers trapping him under a drinking glass, and ending with Keith's taking the aspirin and finally falling asleep. But are you sure it really was an aspirin tablet? Ralph's mother could always find something to worry about. Are you sure it wasn't some other kind of pill? Keith put it on the bedside table and refused to take it until his mother saw it, explained Ralph. At first, his mother and father got pretty excited and thought he was out of his mind from the fever when he started telling them there was an aspirin on the table. Then when they saw the pill and could tell from the letters on it that it really was an aspirin, they decided the night clerk must have found it and brought it up. They thought the windows rattled so much that they didn't hear him knocking. "Oh, Ralph, I'm so proud of you," said his mother with a sigh of relief, while his brothers and sisters and cousins stared at him with shining eyes. "Good work, Ralph. I didn't think you could do it at all," said Uncle Lester very heartily. "I feel much better about room service now that we left the aspirin as a tip," said Ralph's mother. "I feel that at last we have done the right thing." "Our Ralph is growing up," Aunt Sissy said. "Yes, Ralph is growing up," agreed his mother, with a sad note in her voice. "It's hard to believe. It seems only yesterday he was a tiny pink mouse without any hair." Naturally, this embarrassed Ralph, but now that his mother had finally admitted he was growing up, he decided to make the most of this moment. "Now, can I go down to the first floor all by myself?" he said eagerly. "We'll see," said his mother, looking worried once more. "Nonsense," said Uncle Lester. "Of course he may go. Ralph has shown that he can be a very responsible mouse." "I guess you're right," agreed Ralph's mother nervously. "Oh, boy," said Ralph. "Tell us again how you climbed down the vine and the owl nearly got you," begged a cousin. "No, tell us again how the ambulance got stuck in the crack," said another. "No, tell the part about how you got the dog to bark," pleaded a third. The only flaw in the evening for Ralph was the fact that he had not found the motorcycle on his travels through the hotel. Keith slept soundly, and the next morning, although he still had a temperature, Ralph was pleased to see that he was feeling much better. "Do you hurt anywhere?" Mrs. Gridley asked anxiously, after she had given her son an aspirin brought by the milkman. "Is your throat sore? Does your stomach ache?" Keith shook his head. "I feel just sort of tired." "He's going to be all right. He must have picked up a bug somewhere," said Mrs. Gridley to her husband. "A day in bed with plenty of fluids and he'll be back on his feet again." Mr. Gridley nodded. "Do you feel like eating any breakfast?" he asked Keith. "We can order something for you from room service." Keith brightened. "Can I really have something sent up from room service?" he asked, and when his father assured him he could, he slumped back into the pillow. "But I'm not hungry." "Some orange juice would be good for you," suggested his mother. "All right," agreed Keith, and then added, as if he suddenly had inspiration, "and bacon, and toast, and jelly." "Your appetite seems to have come back in a hurry," remarked Mr. Gridley, as he picked up the telephone and asked to be connected with room service to order, he thought, breakfast for his son. As soon as the adults had gone, Ralph popped out into the room. "Hi," said Keith. "Thanks a lot for the aspirin. It really helped." "That's all right," said Ralph very modestly. "Where did you even find it?" Keith was curious to know. "Under a dresser down on the first floor." "The first floor?" Keith could not believe it. "How did you manage to get it up here?" Once more Ralph told the story of his night's adventure, skipping the part about the drinking glass, but making it sound as if he had narrowly escaped the talons of the owl as he traveled down the vine. "Golly!" Keith was amazed at Ralph's story. "You know what? You're a pretty smart mouse, and a brave one, too." "It was nothing," said Ralph in an offhanded manner. "Nothing? It was plenty. You risked your life." The boy's admiration and gratitude made Ralph feel even prouder of what he had done. "I parked your ambulance out in the hall," he said, wanting Keith to know how responsible he was. "Your folks will probably see it and bring it in when they come back." "That reminds me, you didn't happen to see my motorcycle anyplace, did you?" Keith's question was unexpected. "Well, no, I didn't." Ralph suddenly felt less proud of himself, "but I didn't have much time to look." "Yeah, I know." Keith was sympathetic. "I just wondered." A knock at the door sent Ralph scurrying to the knothole. "Come in," said Keith. Matt entered with a tray. "Here you are. And here is your ambulance. I found it out in the hall." He set the tray across Keith's knees. "Sorry to see you're under the weather." "Thank you, I'll be all right." Keith handed Matt a coin his father had left as a tip. "And thanks for bringing my ambulance." Matt pocketed the coin. "Thank you," he said. "And by the way, this doesn't happen to be yours, does it?" He pulled the little motorcycle out of his pocket. Ralph was so excited he almost fell out of the knothole. "Hey!" Keith sat up straight, rocking the orange juice on his tray. "It sure is. Where did you find it?" "Well, it was in a hamper of linen that had been chewed on by mice, or by a mouse. It fell out when the housekeeper was showing us the damage that had been done. I picked it up before anyone noticed it." "Gee, thanks a lot." Keith accepted the motorcycle and set it on his tray. "It's my favorite, you know. I didn't like losing it." "I wonder how it got into that hamper of linen," said Matt. Keith grinned but said nothing. Old Matt rubbed his chin and stared at the ceiling. "I don't suppose a certain irresponsible mouse happened to ride it into a pile of sheets and pillowcases and got tangled up and dumped in the hamper." Keith tried not to laugh. "I don't see any irresponsible mice," he said. "Only one responsible mouse. Say, how did you guess?" "There isn't much around this hotel that escapes my attention," said Matt. "I saw that mouse out in the hall with the little motorcycle. I imagine he's a regular speed demon." Ralph could no longer stay out of the conversation. "I'm fast, but I'm careful. I haven't had an accident yet," he boasted, and added hastily, recalling his fall into the wastebasket, "at least not since I learned to ride the motorcycle." "If there's anything I can't stand, it's a cheeky mouse," remarked Matt good-naturedly. "What do you call getting tangled up in a lot of linen?" "What I mean is, I didn't crack up the motorcycle," said Ralph with dignity. "He's not cheeky," said Keith. "He's brave." You aren't going to tell management about him, are you?" "What's the use?" said Matt. "If they got rid of those mice, more would move in. Anyway, he's a cute little fella. It cheers me up just to think of him tearing around on a little motorcycle." If only I could, thought Ralph. There followed an unusually pleasant day for the mice. Keith stuffed the bacon and toast and jelly through the knothole. The mice feasted on bacon and jelly before the ants could get at them, and stored the toast against the rapidly approaching time when Keith must leave the hotel. They slept all morning while Keith alternately napped and played with his cars. For lunch they enjoyed peanut butter sandwiches again. Ralph did not sleep well that afternoon. He found himself thinking of the tantalizing glimpse he had of the ground floor, and all the opportunities it offered mice. Crumbs in the dining room, leftovers in the kitchen, scraps in the garbage. He lay daydreaming on a pile of shredded tissue. He could see himself on the first floor, pilfering crumbs in the dining room at night after the guests were in bed. And from the dining room he would go to the kitchen, right past the night clerk who was sure to be asleep. If only he could make the trip on a motorcycle. The thought of the motorcycle put an end to Ralph's daydream and made sleep impossible.